less than a year, meaning any form of XR, please go ahead and sit down. It's okay. If you've been in the industry since before 2021, if you've been in the industry longer than, what am I trying to say? If you've been in this industry since after 2021, oh God, it's late in the afternoon, I apologize. After 21, go ahead and sit down. If you want to sit down just because you want to sit down, that's fine too. 2020, 2018, 2017, 2016, 2015. I should sit down too. That was 2018, so all right. We got an OG, 2 OGs, 3 OGs. Amazing. Amazing. You know, this is an industry that's been around for a while. It's been simmering, and now we're starting to see it really accelerate in really remarkable ways. So I'm going to jump right into a series of questions. I'll try to do my best to introduce this amazing panel as we go through. So Kelly and Zavier. Kelly has over 40 years of experience in high-performance computing, IoT. Too much of a resume to even get into it, but she's been in the industry a long time with giants like GE, Boeing. Zavier is doing some really remarkable work and has done remarkable work in the EEG space. His product is something absolutely unique, Naqi Logic. So guys, question is, what are some of the most common roadblocks that you've experienced for customers, and how do you help them overcome? And I think they're referring to how do you overcome roadblocks in getting involved, getting momentum in immersive in the XR industry in general. Kelly?
I'm going to start with the common is budget, obviously, and we've found creative ways to get past it. But I'm going to say even more than that. In the last 7 years we've been in this, it's the lack of viable solutions and what I call POC purgatory. And what we've been confronted with is clients that we go in and talk to, and we've done our homework. We do a thing called, eat your own dog food, drink your own champagne, take these multitudes of software and hardware, put it together, test it out in a production environment, and we've had the luxury of being able to do that. But you go out and talk to a client, and they said, oh, we tried that, it failed. Or as I call the Christmas present, they got a wearable, they were sold the wearable only, not a solution, and they opened it up, they looked at it, they played with it for a week, next thing you know, it's on a shelf and it's collecting dust because they don't know what to do with it from that point on. So what we've had to do is really strive to look at full solutions, sell it as a solution, which at this event, I actually talked to some wearable companies that were like, we need to sell as a solution. It's like, yes, you do, because the customers are the ones that need something that bring value. Whatever your goal is that you need to deliver, you're not going to get that with just a widget. You're not going to get that just with software. You have to have a combination. You have to look at connectivity, cybersecurity, everything else. So the big challenge is getting them to understand that you need to buy it as a solution. You need to address and make it available to everybody. What is it I'm trying to achieve? What am I trying to do?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. 1,000%. I'm a bit of an outsider to XR, but I've been working in the wearable and biosensor space for over 15 years, consumerizing EEG, taking it out of the lab, making it under $100, putting it in the hands of developers and consumers. Now I'm working at Naqi Logix, developing a new human-machine interface, and anytime you introduce a new technology to the market, the first thing is always, what problem are you trying to solve? Are you just making an interesting device or a feature or showing off, or are you solving a problem? If you haven't really connected to the user, connected to a real value proposition, it's going to sit on the shelf. It's going to be a dazzling demo that impresses people in the moment, but you're not really forming a relationship with the customer. So I think the first thing is just getting deeply in touch with the problem that you're solving. The users, you need to understand them deeply so that you can understand that problem and solve it. And it's a holistic package. It's not just the hardware. It's not just the software. It's not just the user experience. It all needs to work together to create something that actually achieves the goal you're setting out to accomplish. Otherwise, it's just fancy tech, and it's not making a meaningful difference in people's lives. So, couldn't agree more.
Amazing. Augie, you also work you work in the voice recognition space, and you've developed a lot of solutions around that. Bryan has a 15-year career in enterprise technology, last 11 years working as the XR lead for Deloitte, Unlimited Reality. The question for you is, what are some of so this is similar to the previous question, but there's a slight nuance to this, which is when you're dealing with low connectivity or no connectivity environments, which you find everywhere, right? How do you create workarounds, the technical workarounds around that?
My mic on? All right, and I apologize in advance. My voice is a little bit hoarse. I've spent the last day and a half talking to all of our wonderful industry colleagues here. I mean, I think it's an interesting problem, and I'm gonna just be honest, right? I don't think it's one that we've completely solved for, right? In low connectivity spaces. I think there's workarounds, right? By bringing some sort of, mobile puck down with you to make sure that you have connectivity to a device. But really, I think it's one that hardware providers really need to figure out, right? I think about the utility space, a space that I have a whole bunch of clients in, and if they're in underground, that's a tough space, right? You're not getting any connectivity to those devices. You almost have to work the process up front, making sure you have all the content side-loaded onto those devices before you get into those low connectivity areas, right?
So side loading and
side
loading it
loading
onto the
and
device itself,
see if
and
there's other external devices, right?
Yeah, bringing the shovels with you into the mine.
Exactly.
Augie, what do you think? I know if you could talk just for a few seconds about what you're creating with voice recognition, it's really impressive stuff.
Yeah, so we directly address this problem because our solution runs on device. So for voice, that's I would say not a problem, or doesn't have to be a problem. Obviously, for some other use cases where there's more complex ones in terms of compute and other things might be harder to solve. But our solution runs on device, so it doesn't need connectivity. One thing that we've learned is, we pitch this as, hey, this works offline. But what we're seeing, and this is something just for the audience to think about, it's not binary. It's not, do I have internet or not have internet? We do have a lot of people coming to us because there is internet, but it's not reliable. And if your service depends on that internet connectivity that's not reliable, your service is not going to work, right? So think about that as well, and there needs to be some solution to that piece as well.
Awesome. Alex, do you want to follow up on that? You've got a lot of experience developing XR experiences, mixed reality experiences that really leverage sort of your AAA game background and studio background. Are there ways to make solutions that are still really engaging and exciting and can work offline?
I mean, I think in our case, a lot of our content is often location-based, so we will build that in a way that doesn't require connection, say, to the internet, and is essentially side-loaded. So I think it really depends on the use case. I think for a lot of our clients, they're fine for things to be essentially siloed that way. When there are moments where, say, it's a mobile augmented reality experience that you bring in your own phone to, and you have to scan a QR code and go on the internet to get that, we make sure that there's connectivity. If there isn't connectivity, we just don't recommend that solution.
Amazing. Ethan, thank you for being here. We're sorry that Iran couldn't be here. Our hearts go out to everyone in the region, and we all pray for peace. But thank you for being here. Ethan, you are with Sightful, so the next question starts with you. What's your advice for evaluating the different hardware options that are on the market? There's a growing number of solutions out there. You guys produce one of them. Can you talk a little bit about that? What options or what ideas do you recommend to clients when they're evaluating hardware?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I think we have a pretty unique experience in this space because we built our own laptop We built an augmented reality laptop, and there are a lot of design considerations that went into it on our own to make sure that it was the optimal experience for specifically productivity and augmented reality. But I think if we were to narrow it down to a couple that I think are the most important for us and how enterprises should look at devices out in the market, well, the first thing they should do is really think about what's the use case, what do we need it for, what's the problem we're trying to solve, and once they figure that out, you can start to think about a few main things. One of them is ergonomics. So how does this fit on a user on their head or in their hand if it's a mobile device, providing a mobile AR solution? The other that we think is really important is the device intuitive? Can anyone pick it up and use it from day one with minimal training, a low barrier to entry for anyone to be able to use the device and immediately find value in it? And the last one that we think is probably the most important and one of the things that will help bring this technology to a mass market across VR, AR, all of these things are the devices that we're supplying our employees and our teams inclusive? Can anyone use it? Does it enable all of the people in our workforce to be able to find value in it? I think for a lot of devices, there's limitations. There's people who aren't comfortable with the device, people who come from different backgrounds, people who have different setups where maybe wearing something on their head isn't so comfortable for them. So depending on the use, I think inclusion, making sure everyone is included and able to use the device is really what's going to bring value to an enterprise.
Thank you so much, Ethan. Ed, I want you to follow up on that. Ed has a lot of experience in immersive technology. He's a founder of 2 separate agencies and now is with Zappar. And you guys have an interesting solution for clients that need an entry point into the XR landscape. Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of what Ethan said, we absolutely agree with. Start with the core use case, keep it front and center the whole time. The approach that we've taken with Zapbox is, look, you only need to go upstairs to see all the amazing devices that are there. The approach that we've taken is every year the mobile devices are still getting better and better. So we're putting the compute power from the device, and we've just focused on the form factor. So what we're seeing with this is under mobile device management policy at enterprises, the mobile is already an approved device. So leveraging the compute power of the mobile is easier to get in, and we're just packaging that with the price point, which is $80 as well, which again, we think will kind of help push that higher adoption rates.
Awesome. Augie, do you want to follow up on that?
Yeah, I think I'll continue on a similar train, but so we see extended reality as not just vision-based. I think there's a lot of focus on vision, as you can see upstairs. There's a lot of use cases that are extended reality that can be audio or I would say voice only. Some of them go back 20 years, like voice picking, but digital workflows, checklists, procedures, inspections, a lot of things can be done without having a screen in front of you. And so, again, going back to the use case, the question is, what is your use case? What do you need? What's the problem you're trying to solve? And do you need, for example, vision headset, or can you solve with just a ruggedized Android phone? And we see a trend where people are moving away from specialized hardware that was, pretty big trend 10 years ago to cheap ruggedized Android phones. So, yeah, focus on utility and the problem, as previous panelists mentioned.
Zavier, I think you want to follow quickly on that one.
Oh, no, I think what everybody has said, I agree with 100%. I would just hammer more on inclusivity. I think we're approaching an era of technology where the benefits are so profound. You're able to experience new worlds just by putting on a headset. And if we're developing all of this in a way that leaves people behind in a previous era where we already weren't doing a great job at inclusivity, I think we've failed in some way. And so one of the things that was incredibly important to us is to center that experience. One of the first implementations we did at Naqi Logix was to allow our earbud, our biosensor device, and our platform to control a powered wheelchair. Because we knew that if we could enable that, if we could enable a person who can't use a traditional mouse or keyboard to control their a desktop PC and work and be productive and play video games, participate in one of the most popular forms of entertainment today, if you could do that in that extreme environment designed for that extreme use case, anything else is possible. And it also improves the lives of so many people. So that is the center of the bullseye for us. That's our core use case. And we know if we can nail that, everything else is possible.
Thank you so much. So this one, I think Kelly, Alex, you guys can talk to this. I think, there's a lot of questions that come up around budgeting and how do you budget, how do you plan for the cost of solutions out there? Do you guys have any words of wisdom around that?
Get creative. We've looked at a few different things. We just had something that came up that helps a company look at costs in different areas of their company. And you can imagine that when you get all wrapped up in things you're trying to do to run your company, there's some things that go to procurement and you kind of forget about them, like long-term contracts. And by having them addressed, there's some really interesting ways to go back and look at that and find some cost savings. And then, you go back to your CFO and say, hey, I saved you $1.5 million on a couple of contracts. How about if you take half that budget and put it toward, an XR project that's, also going to add ROI. So that's the way we've been addressing it.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean just to say XR. Obviously, you work in the IoT and the big systems, big connected systems. I learned a new term from Kelly, which is operational technology.
Yep.
That I was not aware of, and really fascinating space. No room for error at all in operational technology.
No.
Alex, what do you think? You obviously work on some pretty advanced solutions, and I'm sure the first question clients always ask is, how much is this going to cost me?
Yeah, how much is it? How long is a piece of string? I think is the question that comes up a lot. So I think with creative services, we produce content. We take kind of rough ideas, work on strategy in terms of how to refine those ideas, and carry those all the way through into building content that can be deployed and wherever it needs to go. So our background, like our whole crew, is from AAA games and making like amazing visuals and feature films. And one of the things you learn quickly in those kinds of creative environments that are real pressure cookers is how do you fail as fast as you can? So how do you iterate as fast as you can? How do you get the stakeholders involved early, get them using the technology early, get them bought into what the project's going to be, and just know that your first idea is not necessarily going to be where you end up. And introduce that process of just trying things out, getting people engaged. That ends up speeding things up quite a bit, so that once you get to the expensive part, which is building the content, building the experience, building the product, you know what you're going to do. You've already solved all those kind of messy what-if kind of scenarios. And then the last thing we always like to remind people is that there is a lifespan to these things. Once you build them, they have to kind of be kept alive. And how do you maintain a budget that goes on beyond the launch date and can be maintained? So we're always very honest about, is there some sort of support need that needs to be included, and like how is that part of their ROI?
Fantastic, thank you so much. I'm going to open this up to everybody. If you can just sort of rapid fire from Ethan on down. I think this is a question that there's a lot of room for ideas here, but who should be in the room when you're having these initial meetings and you're planning a solution? Who do you like to have in the room with you?
Yeah, for us, we've seen success by having two main people in the room. You need a champion of the business in a specific business segment, someone who it's going to drive impact for. They're a business leader, they're a strong voice within the company, and they obviously love your product and want to be the champion for that inside the organization. The other for us is the IT organization, the one who has to approve the budgets, make sure devices are secure, can pass through all of their security and regulatory requirements. Those two people usually have to play well together to get any sort of device approved inside, and those are the ones we've had to have there to get our system an approved device.
Bryan?
I'm going to plus up that. Plus, a product owner. I think a lot of times we forget what we're delivering is they're digital products, right, at the end of the day. And time again, working with clients, especially in niche parts of the organization, they don't have the proper product owner to see that through, right? To have that business perspective, that technical perspective, understand the measurement, right, piece of it, what they're trying to measure, establishing KPIs, right? A lot of that is missing from, I feel like, a lot of organizations that we've worked with, because it is the shiny thing and they're trying to innovate really quick. So that piece is missing. I think the most important piece is the end user, right? A lot of times when we're building solutions for various clients and customers, it's either coming from the very top down or bottoms up, right? And we want both in the room at the same time, right? We want to make sure what our client is trying to achieve also means there are benefits to the end user, right? And the end user can provide that feedback that is much needed for that product. That, to me, equals success, is when you have those four. I'm sure we'll add some more along the line here if we have any left. But making sure you have the right stakeholders in the room, I think, is extremely important from the start. Assuming we've already sold the project, right?
Zavier, what have you found?
+1 on the end user. It's not possible in all circumstances, but at the very least, somebody in the room who can deeply and intuitively represent the voice of the end user. Somebody close to the situation or somebody with the experience of that situation. I can't name how many times you will be surprised, see something extremely counterintuitive that turns out to be right. Things that you fought about for months in an organization, and an end user can solve that Gordian knot or cut that Gordian knot with one comment or conversation, and it is deeply clarifying. It's something that we have in our organization. There's somebody with lived experience in a chair who joins our development calls every other week, I would say. And it's awe-inspiring, and it rallies the team, and it focuses you like nothing else. So if you can't get an end user, somebody who can represent that voice in the room is essential.
Yeah, perfect. Alex, what do you think?
I think I'll echo a lot of that. I think for us, the end user is often a little harder to bring into the room because they're at the end of the project, and so we need that evangelist, that person that's really believing in the project, that understands the internal culture of the company that we're working with, like how to get things won over, and then kind of like nuts and bolts. Our team, we come with a project manager, a creative director, creative lead, and a technical lead. And if there's those skill sets represented on the client side, everything just goes way smoother. So for every part of every facet of that conversation, if there's someone on either side that's kind of got their mirror, we found those projects run much smoother.
What do you think, Ed?
I think all the good answers have gone already. I mean, what they said, I think one thing that I would say is we have different pillars of the business. So whether it's Zapbox, whether it's our platform, or whether it's our creative studio, who we're speaking to is very different within an organization. One thing to throw in as well, just for interest, is particularly on the enterprise side, definitely over the last couple of years, we've seen way more focus on quite lengthy infosec processes. I mean, just tangentially, just to throw in there, is kind of what we've definitely been seeing.
Yeah, probably not very tangential for a lot of people in this room, IT and security are probably, I think Vishal said it this morning, that they're fundamental to the implementation of these projects. Yeah. Augie, have you found anyone unique that you want to have in your first meeting?
So we're a little bit different, because we're tech enablers. So we talk to companies that build products that go to end users. So I mean, a lot of overlap. Product owner is the biggest one. Somebody who can clearly articulate what the problem is, and then for us, it's helpful to have somebody who understands the technical side of things, because that helps. We can easily then explain and help them understand, what does it take to solve this problem. And one kind of caveat I'll add here when it comes to product owner and understanding or being able to articulate the problem, the situations we're often enough to bring this up is that sometimes people don't know that they have a problem, or they don't know that the problem they have has a solution that we can help them solve. And so this is kind of we're constantly trying to advocate, hey, these are the things we can help you with, and this just takes time and events like this.
Kelly.
Yeah, we do something called a quick start. So we're very focused on IoT in operational technology and information technology. So it's putting frontline workers and engaging with them. And I've heard one of my colleagues call it field first. I listened yesterday on a panel, Boeing said the same thing. They're key to put in the process. But the other people that we put in is a lot of what they said. You have to have an executive sponsor. You have to have, probably a mid-level management person. You definitely have to have somebody from IT because it's not possible to have it without them. I've seen a change in how much clout IT carries, where before it pretty much delivered solutions, and we don't see that anymore. We see more budgeting going to the business units, and the business units determining what they need. And with that, again, frontline workers, absolutely. We take if you know software development and the agile approach to software development, we kind of follow that same protocol of get everybody in the room. We even use the stickies. And what we've found multiple times is they come in with, in their mind, this is what we want to solve. When they leave, all of them are on the same page with a totally different solution than what they thought they needed in the first place. And they all have buy-in. And having everybody in the room with buy-in definitely leads to success.
Fantastic. We're going to stay with you, Kelly. We're going to go back around again. I think this is a question that everybody has experience with. Based on your experience, there's a question here that is basically around what is low-hanging fruit? What are opportunities that you've come across that organizations should consider across the range of work that you do that deliver strong ROI, are clear, and can get buy-in quicker than, say, some of the more complicated projects that are out there? What do you think?
I don't think there's any that get instant funding. I would love to know some that do, but I would say the biggest ROI we find, you can get an ROI of a couple of days, and that's mostly on connected worker, where you don't have to fly somebody in for a complex repair. You can use a technical person that's on site and connect them with a specialist from anywhere in the world. And we've seen this happen a couple of times, and it pays for it in a few days.
Augie?
I'm going to be very biased, so I think there is a lot of interesting use cases where voice can provide quickly provide ROI, significant one. And given the state of technology, I think if you have those problems, you should think about voice. The ones I mentioned before,
Ed?
I'd say product visualization. There are a couple of great talks earlier today next door on the use of 3D. For us, augmented reality has a really fantastic ability to take quite complex procedural information and through visuals make it very simple to understand. It's a use case that I think increasingly people are really understanding the value of, and you can use it in multiple locations. It's very common for us to create a product visualization experience that's built as an internal piece to train sales teams, and then it just goes straight out unchanged to the consumer as well. So yeah, I'd say definitely product visualization is a great one.
I think when you first asked that, I was thinking, what's the easiest thing to get approved? And it's like, well, probably the cheapest thing we do. But then that's not really the answer. It's the thing that solves the most problems. So when we talk to our clients and try and discover what they're looking for, there's usually the first idea that they have. I have this thing I want to put in the world, and it's because of this. And after a little bit more exploration, we discover, well, you have these other things, and there's other stakeholders that have other problems. And then you can sort of start discovering that there's a little bit of an ecosystem here. And if you can create a solution that kind of solves multiple people's problems and kind of ticks a lot of different boxes, even if it's a little more money, it's much, much easier for everyone to go like, get excited about and be like, oh my gosh, this one thing can take care of these 6 things. And so that's what we look for when we start a project.
I'm going to risk a bit of a tortured metaphor here, but sometimes the lowest hanging fruit is something you have to dig for because it's already there. And if you have the underserved needs of your user and your customer in mind, and you spend a little bit of time at the front thinking about that very clearly, there could be something right there that is easy to capture, but you would overlook completely if you didn't stop to do that planning at the beginning. So I would say that. Also, accessibility might seem daunting, but I think a lot of times people don't pay any attention to it whatsoever. There are a lot of fixes like just paying attention to color blindness or contrast, things that are being implemented in a lot of AAA games that I see out today that have huge benefits that were never done even a few years ago. So that's a UX change that's simple to implement, and it's right there if you just put forth the effort.
Cool. Yeah, I'm going to take the conference floor as a signal, right? You're seeing a couple themes out there on the floor where, 1, immersive learning, 2, augmented work instructions, right? I feel like those 2 use cases might be obvious ones, but obviously people are selling that, right? And they're getting a return on investment, and there's a lot of data to support the fact that immersive learning will, save you money by cutting down the cost, right, of flying people out to a location or getting them up to speed quicker. One of the, kind of themes that we always talk about with our clients is that we're not trying to replace some of the traditional like learning methodologies, right? We try to go in with a blended learning approach to, shave down even a day or 2 of being all in the same location. And at scale, that could save you millions and millions of dollars, right? On the frontline side of it, right, same thing, right? Reducing truck rolls, right? If you have the right processes in place where you're providing work instructions or, that self-service as step 1, can't figure it out, okay, now you call in a remote expert, okay, still can't figure out that problem, then you do the truck roll, right? Rather than just sending people out in the field from the very start. So those 2 I would highlight.
Yeah, I think virtual reality and augmented reality for a long time have been a technology kind of searching for a solution. And I think thanks to conferences like this and events, we've found some areas where it can provide a lot of value, like training, industrial 3D design. There are areas where having an immersive environment immediately creates value for an end user. For us, we're building a platform. We're building a horizontal platform, a completely new way for people to experience content, to work inside of an augmented reality environment. And that presented a lot of challenges for us because when you're building a platform, it means it can work for everyone. But we had to really narrow down the use cases and think about what are some areas where people find immediate value by having this type of solution. And for us, some of the things that came up were pretty simple, like a sales team. If you're working in sales, then you need to make your company money. You need to be as productive as possible, as efficient at your job as possible. You're also probably a remote worker now, you're hybrid, you're moving all over the place. And so our solution is something that can provide them the ability to have their optimal level of productivity. They can have as many screens as they want, working from LinkedIn to prospect, Salesforce for their CRM. They can have their email up over here. They can have all these tools all around them and be productive from anywhere, from their office, from their hotel desk in their office if they don't have a dedicated desk, from home, from a coffee shop. And so that was the approach that we took, is just really thinking about what are the immediate areas where the solution that we have provides value, and a little bit of changing people's mindset, inspiring them to think a little bit past some of the more immersive experiences that people have built so far related to training and 3D design, to think a little bit further how this technology in the area that we're in can actually impact so many other business areas today with the technology that we have right now.
Thank you so much, Ethan, and thank you guys so much. I hope hope this is helpful. I mean, I'm standing here learning, and I've talked to these guys for at least 45 minutes each. So I want to turn this over to you guys because we're really here. I mean, I hope that someone here, a few of you, have questions that our audience or our panelists can address for you. Oh yeah. Oh, it's still on the mic. All right. We'll share. All right. Thank you. Thank you, brave soul.
I'm going to struggle to frame this question, but you guys were talking about needing kind of a partner, to advocate for the technologies that you guys create. And solutions kept coming into my mind, like what's the actual problem? So as an instructional designer, it's my job, if I'm going to be effective at what I do, to know the end user. Because in a learning context, I need to understand the nuances of the environment that they're working in. I need to know where their performance gaps are, and I need to understand how your technology can potentially help me design solutions for them. So I guess my question, and maybe comment too, is I'm new here. This is my first time in a conference like this, and so I'm learning a lot myself. Is that how often in your work do you identify instructional designers as that maybe target partner to kind of at least learn a little bit more about how your technology can solve a problem or how you might be able to develop or design it differently to solve problems? Because I'm seeing a lot of cool technology. I'm really having a hard time learning or figuring out in the work that I do, the two languages coming together, how can we translate that in a way that I'm communicating to you what we need, that in a way that makes sense to you, and how can I understand your technology better in terms of how it can deliver solutions? Is this making any sense? I feel a little bit lost.
Definitely makes
and
total sense.
It's definitely authentic to my experience. I feel a little bit lost, but I'm excited too, because I want to be a partner in that. I just need to understand a little bit more, maybe how to communicate.
I could take a stab. I think so. What comes to mind is something that we deal with a lot, which is, what is the problem we're trying to solve? There's usually initial idea. There's a few solutions that people have maybe seen on the internet. They've seen a press release. They, wouldn't it be cool if? That's kind of where we start. But what we always do is try and take a step back and do kind of more of like a strategic business strategy approach. We run sessions where we do discovery, and it's a little bit more formal around like Post-it notes. Okay, who are you? What is your goal? What is the story you're trying to tell? What is your brand? Not talking about XR yet. Just talking about like principles, like who's your customer? Who are they? Like what is their persona? And kind of refining it. And sometimes at the end of it, it's not an XR solution. Maybe it's like a web thing. Maybe it's a social media thing. And so we don't default straight into kind of like a solution early. We start with that kind of discovery, creative design, just kind of exploration. And then, if it does lead to something more immersive, more spatial, then it's backed up and everyone's bought into it.
Did you describe your role as instructional designer?
Yeah.
That's great. I spent most of my career working on devices that people don't even know how to wear correctly, EEG devices that are reading your brain or other parts of your body. And we spent a lot of time just trying to onboard people, trying to get them to the point where they feel comfortable, they know how to use it appropriately. And I think we're approaching a time where we're encountering so many new mental models all the time, whether it's in hardware or software or how you interact with an AI system. And I think it's something we're going to need to think a lot more seriously about how we incorporate it into the design process. You can't just give somebody a quick start guide and have step 1, 2, 3. People need to be brought into the experience of learning how to use the product. So I love your comment. Thank you.
Bryan, I think you need to add to that too, because you guys do work, I'm sure, with a lot of instructional designers and
Yep.
we need to integrate LMS solutions and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I back up with what some of the other panelists mentioned, right, about really starting with the problem first, right? And as an instructional designer, you're probably thinking of learning objectives and, how do I, get those outcomes, right? Designing courseware, right? Maybe more in the traditional sense of like computer-based training, right? The way we sort of have looked at, called immersive learning, is kind of in two different categories, right? Your hard skills and your soft skills. which I think is pretty easily adaptable to the traditional thinking, right, around learning and what you're trying to, teach somebody, right, or teach your workforce. There's probably maybe one more bucket around systems training, right? That sort of maybe spans a little bit into hard skills and soft skills. But I think if you're thinking about how to, make that translation or that jump, I would maybe use that mental model because, there's solutions out there in the market that address basically all of those, right? And the leap into XR from an instructional standpoint, I think I'll add to my earlier statement, right, around who's in the room and who's needed in the room. For those learning projects, we should have more learning professionals and instructional designers at the table, right, at the very start of that project, whether it's XR or AR, right? Because they understand the learner, right? And they're going to push for those outcomes. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
I sort of kind of took a different spin on it, but.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a great question. I mean, and there's so much opportunity in the learning space for all these technologies that I think what you're asking is something probably that resonates with a lot of people that work in the same area. So, and congratulations for jumping in. But I do want to follow up. Is there another question? Because I want to follow up with this one if not.
Lady and gentlemen, good evening. A common theme I'm hearing here goes back to the primary steps of design. What do you want? What do you need? My question to anybody on the panel is, how do you take the vanity out of that decision? Because a lot of times the design process, I'm seeing come across stakeholders like, I want this, I want that, I want that, which really kind of messes up the entire life cycle and takes away the whole phased approach. So my question is, how do you keep the vanity out of that decision-making process to make the project successful?
I'll tell you one of the things we do, and we've actually talked to clients about crawl, walk, run, and not to sit there and look and say, hey, I want to do this digital transformation, blah, 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 and you're stop. Because we've seen so many opportunities that just exploded because that was the approach. So we push them back, way back, to a crawl, even to the point of they look at, we do a session with them and they identify 3 things. We still push them farther down to 1. Do 1. Be successful at 1. If you want to make your way up to this, vanity thing of what you create, it has to be successful. So start small, grow from there.
Yeah, if I could jump in too, I would also say, like, a lot of times we educate our clients on where they're actually at in that maturity curve, right? They might not understand the full landscape and what it takes to actually fully deploy and scale a solution. So we help visualize that, right? You guys are actually here. You're way all the way here over to the left. Look how much you have in front of you to do to actually achieve scale, right? Let's focus on a pilot. Let's measure that. Let's get success, and then start to kind of build on that.
Yeah, Ed, do you have a comment on that too? I feel like with what you do, it's a natural fit for that crawl, walk, run that Kelly just.
Yeah, absolutely. We've actually had quite a lot of success, sort of ring fencing a define and discovery phase. So a paid doesn't have to be a bunch of money, but just getting everyone in the room instead of just the usual throwing ideas around, putting it into a scope of work. Actually ring fencing out a define and discovery phase that really informs what this project is and does it over a sensible timeline. It isn't just packed into a statement of work up front. It's spread out over time and worked through, right through that crawl, walk, run effectively.
We are at time. I want to thank you guys so much for your time, your attention. I want to thank these amazing panelists. Thank you all so much for all the research and work that you've done in this, and have a great AES, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks all.
Thank you.